I hear a lot of people that get out of college, they graduate, and they regret how they spent their time. They wish they were more social and they took more advantage of what the college had to offer. And so I don't want to be that person when I graduate. What a lot of people don't understand is that we're also paying for all of the other benefits that come with college. Hello, beautiful people. Welcome back to the Diaries of an Outcast podcast. I'm your host, The Day Day J. I'm doing well today. Thank you for asking. Whether you're new or not, thank you for showing up for me and for yourself today. And I could bet if you're here on my channel watching this video, you're all about personal development and being the best version of yourself you can possibly be without all the toxicity tied to it, right? We're all about balance and having a happy and healthy life over here without all of the stress, toxic stuff, all of that. So, hi, hello, how are you doing? I hope you're doing well. I would like to bet if you clicked on this video, you are wanting to have the best school fall semester possible and you want to be ahead of 90% of your peers. Now, you're going to have to listen very carefully in this video to be able to do that. First, before we get into the actual content and the meat of this video, I'd like to give a bit of a description of what my podcast is about, where I'm coming from when I sit in front of the camera every week or every other week and talk to you guys. So in this podcast, everything I talk about is revolving around being an outcast in my life. So I just want to be very clear when I say outcast, I don't mean I'm rejected from society or that I don't have friends, but just all my life I felt like an outcast to my peers one way or another. I usually, like, one example is I usually talk about personal development a lot. And I don't notice my peers doing that. They might be talking about it, they may be thinking about it, but not as much as I am. Also, growing up as a multiracial person has also made me feel like an outcast. Let's be real, like in elementary, middle school, and even into high school, people gravitate towards other people that look like them or from the same racial or ethnic background. And so being a multiracial person, I never felt fully accepted into a friend group. Now, obviously, I have amazing friends, but growing up, that has been very prevalent in my life. Also, coming from generations of poverty, I think has really uniquely shaped me with a certain perspective that I really want to share my insights on with you guys. And I want to bring to light certain things that people just aren't talking about here on the internet. Or maybe they are talking about it, but not from not from this perspective that I'm coming from, right? Also, just like being a first generation college student, navigating that, figuring out life on my own, and the struggles that come with just coming from a difficult upbringing and just not the best upbringing. I also talk about things relating to society and social media and trends. And I like to share my perspective on those things as well. And just anything I feel like needs to be talked about more is honestly what I'm here to talk about on my podcast. So if you're interested in all of that, from a person who has come from not the best upbringing, from kind of a difficult upbringing, experienced setbacks from that and difficulties because of that, you're in the right place. Just before I get into my guide or my tips and advice, I'd like to just make a disclaimer that these aren't necessarily all the things you should be doing to have the best fall semester. It depends person to person, situation to situation. So tweak and audit these tips and advice that I give you today to fit your own personal life, your personality, and your lifestyle. I just like to give that as a disclaimer because I know there's nuances to everything, and just because you do all of these things doesn't mean you will have the best semester. And I just want to throw that out there. But I do guarantee that if you do all of these things or most of these things, your semester will at least run a lot smoother. The first thing, the number one thing, of course, I have it on here, is to create a weekly schedule. Now, some of us are starting school soon. Some of us are not starting school until early September. Some of us may have our class schedules, some of us don't. And so if you have your classes already, go ahead and add those to your calendar or your planner or whatever you use to reference your daily life and what you have to do. If you don't have your classes, maybe just try to guess of like what time and maybe how long those classes are. But regardless, create a weekly schedule that allows time for studying, of course. It has time blocked out for your classes and lecture time blocked out to get to class, as well as time for cooking meals and extracurriculars and or social time. Now, I believe creating a weekly schedule while in college or even in high school is very important because a big chunk of your life is academic work. A big chunk of your life is being in class as well as outside of class studying, right? So being able to see all of that laid out in front of you will then make it more clear as to what time you actually do have, because I feel like in college it's so easy to be like, I have no time, I'm always so busy. But then maybe once you add your classes, you add your study time, you might start to see those little chunks of time where you do have time to work on your hobbies, or where you do have time to maybe cook more than you already do. And so studying is obvious. Of course, that's going to be on your weekly schedule. But I added cooking because I feel like us as college students aren't huge cookers, most of us. And then that translates to not eating the best food. We're not getting the best nutrients that we necessarily need. And then that leads to us maybe not showing up as best as we can. So, allowing yourself to cook as much as you can throughout your week is key to energy, saving money, and all of that. And now, cooking was something that I did not implement into my weekly schedule last school year. Although I did want to cook more, I found myself very flustered and getting frustrated when I could not find time to cook. And that's just because I was not prioritizing it on my calendar. It was not on my calendar. So I was not prioritizing it. So making or blocking out time to cook, I think, is so important, as well as time for extracurricular activities and hobbies. Now, this one is very, very important because just because you're in college, just because you're a busy gal or a guy, and you're trying to get the most out of college, your academics, you're trying to get good grades, I know you got to have some fun time. You got to have some time where you're working on a hobby. For me, that would be YouTube. Or you have time for social time, so hanging out with friends, doing whatever. Because if you don't, I promise you, you are like 10 times more likely to get burnt out quicker if you do not have this allocated time. Trust me. Because look, here's the thing. Of course, a big chunk of college is academic. Let's be real. That's the main point of college, right? But what a lot of people don't understand is that we're also paying for all of the other benefits that come with college. So the workout centers and facilities, the clubs and organizations, the intern opportunities that you have, researching opportunities, being able to go to certain events on campus and network. A lot of these things most colleges provide as a part of your college experience and what you've already paid for, in your tuition. So take advantage of that. I hear a lot of people that get out of college, they graduate, and they regret how they spent their time. They wish they were more social and they took more advantage of what the college had to offer. And so I don't want to be that person when I graduate and I'm like, dang, I wish I would have networked more. I wish I would have gotten a part of a club or an organization. Make that very, very clear with yourself. If there's any little desire within yourself to do that, get on top of that now and take advantage of that. Just do it. Next tip I have for you guys is, once you get your syllabus, as soon as you get your syllabus, whether that's on the first day or before the first day, input all of those tests, assignments, anything that is due, that will be due, anything that's an assignment that you have to turn in, or any times where there's like no class, input that into your calendar now. You will get deep into the semester and you will not feel like inputting all these assignments and dates into your calendar and or planner, whatever you use to keep track of your life. You're not going to feel like doing that. You're going to be very busy and all of the above. So doing that prior to the start of the semester, or prior to just like the second week of school when things get a little heavy, this is something I've been doing since I've started college, and it has really helped me keep track of all of my assignments. And I will say, I don't think there's been one assignment that I've like forgotten about or like um missed, because everything was always input into my calendar, the first week of school. If you do this though, also being aware that things are subject to change, so due dates can change, whatever, and just being aware of that and paying attention to get those dates updated is important. All right, moving on to tip number 3. This one is to get to know your professors. Now, I know you've heard it so many times. I've heard it so many times, and I didn't recognize the truth to this until I've actually gotten into college. I recognize it's very important to get to know your professors as people, rather than just professors in the classroom, in the lecture room, whatever, because you build a relationship and you build a bond that can then be translated into, let's be honest, forgiveness. So if something comes up in your personal life and you need some leeway for an assignment and you ask for an extension, they may be more willing to give you that extension if you have a relationship with them and if they know you personally, not just as another number in their classroom. So going to their office hours, setting up appointments with them, going up to them after class and asking them questions. Also, something I plan to do since I'm now transferring to a new school, on the first day of all of my classes, I plan to, after or maybe before class, if I get the chance, to just introduce to myself to my professor, let them know that I'm very excited for the semester, and maybe just let them know if you're, maybe double majoring, what's your other major, or maybe what's your minor, whatever, just so they know a little bit about you. And now they have a name and a face to put to that name, and now they will remember you. Doing this really goes a long way. It can go a long way as far as like them being a reference for you when you go and get a job, or them helping you get a job, or them connecting you with certain people in the field that you want to work in. So it goes beyond academics. I know you've heard it so many times, like I've said, but it's so true. Get to know your professors, introduce yourself to them, and stay in contact with them throughout the semester. All right, guys, the next thing is to practice intentional networking, not just networking. You're not just collecting contacts to just say you have all these contacts in your phone, but actually networking, getting to know these people you're networking with. And when you do add, their contact to your phone, reaching out to them soon after you've met them and just letting them know, hey, it was nice to meet you. I'm really glad we got to connect. I'm interested in staying connected, and here's why I'm interested in doing X, Y, and Z. So not just putting these contacts in your phone, but actually keeping these contacts alive and these connections alive. And this is something that I'm currently practicing since my internship with Target recently just ended. I really want to keep these connections that I made throughout this internship alive. So just reaching out to them, letting them know what's new in your life regarding, academics or whatever you guys have in common, updating them on that. I think this is so important because I don't think there's any other better place to network besides college. I think, again, similar to what I said before, a lot of people exit college and they wish that they networked more and they wish they took advantage of all the opportunities there were to connect with people, especially people that may be doing something that you're interested in doing and that you want to learn more about. With this, I would say it's also important to practice, starting conversations with people that you don't know. This is something that I really need to work on. I get very anxious when it comes to talking to people that I've never met. And so just practicing how to start a conversation up with someone you never met, someone you never talked to before, and then also practicing holding conversations, which can be really hard and sometimes can be a little awkward. So I just want to point that out as well. Don't feel bad if you can't do these things. Because I think a lot of people, even outside of college, can't do these things, if I'm being real. So if you can learn to do these things throughout your years in college, you will be ahead of a lot of people. What's up? So if you're liking this podcast episode so far, and if you're into personal development, lifestyle, leveling up, and a little bit of social commentary, consider subscribing to my channel. I talk about all of these things plus more from a lens of someone that came from a difficult upbringing and that has came from generations of poverty. Also, if you like the content in this particular episode, consider checking out my previous YouTube video titled My Guide for Having a Great Fall Semester. I will link it down in the description below for you to check that out. All right, guys, so moving on to tip number 8. This one kind of relating to the previous tip about networking. This one is to build a professional online presence. Now, when I say professional, I don't mean you have to be tip top. You look like you're a CEO of a brand. You don't have to do all of that. But just making sure your social media platforms, if you were an employer and if you were looking to employ someone, if you were to look at your page, is it acceptable? Is there appropriate things on there? Of course, like be yourself. Don't like hold back, because I think that you should always bring yourself to a job. But making sure things like maybe your LinkedIn profile is more on the professional side and you're sharing your achievements and accomplishments so that you're more attractive to recruiters and employers, For me, a few years ago, like on my Facebook, I would sometimes share memes that had like, some dirty jokes in them, or some just little certain things, and I just stopped. I removed those from my page and stopped sharing things like that just because I don't want someone to come to my page and that be the first thing that they see. So just making sure all of your platforms are to your standards and what you think a company's standards might be or a recruiter's standards might be, and just keeping them up to date as far as your contact information, your job information, and if you're on LinkedIn, your accomplishments, your achievements, and all of that, because people want to see that. All right. Tip number 6 is a big one. This one is to learn the art of saying no. In college, it is so easy to get pushed and pulled in every which direction, whether it's with your academics and, your classes and studying, clubs and extracurricular activities, your friends and your family. You're trying to do good in your health and wellness. You're trying to look for a job and internships. You are literally being pulled in so many directions in college, and let's just say in life. So I think learning the art of saying no to certain things that do not align with your goals is the utmost important thing that you can learn to do. There might be weekends where, you set aside time to work on your hobbies, or you set aside time to cook dinner or whatever it might be. And maybe a friend asks to go out, with you. And going out with them would mean that you can no longer cook and you can no longer work on your hobbies or whatever. How I used to be, I was a bit weak minded. If my friend asked me to do, if my friend asked me to hang out and I had something important to do that I've set aside time for, that I've already planned days before, weeks before, I was a bit weak minded and I'll just go hang out with my friend and I'll just disregard, cooking or, um, you know, disregard cooking or working on my YouTube videos or my content. And then after that, I will end up like feeling resentment towards myself and irritated with myself and being like, girl, like you could have just said no, now, you're behind in X, Y, and Z, and now you got to catch up. And so, whenever someone asks you something, really think about if what they're asking you to do aligns with your goals or if doing that thing will disrupt working towards your goals. Now, this doesn't mean that, you know, you should always be working on your hobbies and working towards leveling up every single day and every minute of the day, every time you have free time, that's all you should be doing. No, because I think hanging out with friends, leisure activity, all of that is just as important as setting goals. I really do think so, because without that time you're not able to show up as the best version of yourself and feel fulfilled and happy. So, just learning to say no to the things that really will disrupt your groove and your rhythm, saying no to things that don't align with your goals or the version that the ideal version that you see of yourself. If these things aren't aligning with those things, say no. Just say no. It'll save you time, energy, and like it'll save you like talking down on yourself and getting mad at yourself. We don't want that. Now, last but not least, this tip is very important. It is to set academic and personal goals and set aside time for reflection. Now, last but not least, this tip is very important. Tip number 7 is to set academic and personal goals and set aside time for reflection on those goals. Of course, I was going to say set goals. Whatever that looks like for you, whether you set goals in beginning of the year or you set goals for different, each quarter, whatever that looks like for you, get very clear on what the goals are that you will be working on during the fall semester. That way you can be completely aligned and clear on what you will be working on. So, maybe this means like just setting aside time to sit down and think about what are the goals that you want, or journaling, whatever way that helps you just, get very clear and into your mind and really understand what you want. For me, it's journaling. So after journaling, I would be very clear on what my goals are. I then write next to that goal, when X happens or when I do X, that's how I know I've completed this goal. And so doing that is really important, just to see like to be very clear on like, okay, what is going to be the thing that will show me that I've reached this goal? Because a lot of times we'll set goals and we'll hit them and we won't even recognize that we've hit them. and we'll actually add that goal onto our next goal list because we think that we didn't even do the goal, like we didn't complete the goal. So writing your goals out, putting next to the goals, what will happen once I have completed this goal. And then after I do that, I like to create a vision board, of course. I really like to do this because I'm a visual person. I like to have a visual representation, but I also just like to look at it every day, and it helps remind myself of what I'm working towards. I think a lot of people online make goals and, like setting goals and all of that very toxic because they make it seem like this is the only thing you should be working on, and like your whole life depends on this goal and like reaching the goal. One thing I'll say, I think it's very important to be working towards goals and to have goals, but also to have a balance in your life and to understand that not everything that you do, not all the time that is being spent will be working on these goals. And that's okay. So, like, hanging out with your friends might not be working towards your goal. Or maybe it is, because maybe, connecting more and getting together more was a part of one of your goals, right? So it really just depends on the person, and just not getting hard on yourself or getting down on yourself when you aren't working on your goal as much as you should be, and just and like that's why I said setting aside time for reflection, whether that's every week, every month, whatever works for you, whatever feels best for you, to reflect and to see how you're doing on working towards these goals. Because I think a lot of us set goals and we kind of just say, okay, now I'm going to work on it, and we forget about it. And that's something I've done for a long time, but really this year I would say has been the year where I've got very intentional about my goals, as far as like how I set them, but also how I executed them, and how I am going to determine when I've reached that goal, because it's very important to me to celebrate my accomplishments and acknowledge them to continue moving forward in a strong matter, if that makes sense. That's everything I have for you guys for this podcast episode. Um, if you haven't already, follow me on Instagram. My Instagram is at TheDayDayJ. That is all my social medias, but I'm mostly just active on YouTube and Instagram. And again, if you're into personal development, lifestyle, fashion, and a little bit of social commentary, you are in the right place. I post videos once a week. Every other week it's a podcast episode, and every other week is a regular YouTube video. So, yes, I will see you guys next week. Bye.